to the Buzz Pound.
Smith scores, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime.
A Queen City sports podcast covering your Charlotte Hornets and Carolina Panthers.
Halliburton, nowhere to go! LaMelo's done it! LaMelo's done it! Hornets win! Here comes LaMelo.
Here are your hosts, Ian Blair and Cam Gardner.
Another Panthers loss, not worth talking about. A major loss at that, 7-40 against Washington. Dalton, not a good game at all. Hubbard, only reason why we got any numbers on the board. Ian, is it worth talking about today?
Man, obviously we got to cover it because we're in a Hornets and Panthers podcast, but it's just frustrating. Another week, another L, and another week during this year that we look like a JV squad out there playing in the NFL, and it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. I want to turn on the game. I want to watch the game, but it's just so painful to watch. I end up turning it off halfway through the first quarter because we're already down by multiple touchdowns. And anyway, I think we should start this podcast off obviously talking about the big Hornets W tonight. Obviously 110-105 in Houston against the Rockets. Shorthanded in the second half. Obviously Brandon Miller had some hip soreness or something like that, didn't play the second half, but LaMelo Ball is the story of the game tonight against the Rockets. Cam, do you want to kind of go into that?
Like you said, LaMelo Ball. That's all you got to say. Man, we missed you, LaMelo.
We did.
We hope your ankles and you as a whole can stay healthy this season because we need you. We need this. We're talking about 34 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds, 50% field goal game. That's quite a first game back after missing majority of last season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it is beyond impressive. I mean, we all always knew he was a star ever since he came to Charlotte. And even before, I mean, just the way he played, he was always special. And your guy, Trey Mann, had a good game too. They're talking 24 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. I think that's the other highlighted player of the game. Down 18 points, down 3 starters, Mark Williams, Josh Green with sore Achilles, and Brandon Miller, who had in-game hip soreness, who unfortunately had to leave. Hopefully he gets right and comes back sooner rather than later because we definitely need him too because he was about to pop off. You saw that early poster. He was about to have a game, but the basketball gods did not want it for this one game. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later, like I said. But man, LaMelo Ball is a bad cat.
Yeah. And I mean, he really took over the game. When I first tuned in, we were down, we were in the stretch, we were down close to 18 and, it was kind of disappointing to see, it was kind of reminiscing of last year. And all of a sudden, LaMelo Ball kind of took over the game. I think LaMelo really stole the show tonight. I think he really down the stretch, especially in the fourth quarter, I think he had 12 fourth quarter points, if I'm not mistaken. And really just took over the game down the stretch and looked like he didn't miss any time last year. Looked like he was ready to go. And it's one of those things that you just hope so desperately that he could stay healthy for the entire season because he's a difference maker that we know he can be and we know he is. He just hasn't been able to show it because he's been hurt. But, I mean, as you mentioned, 34 points, near triple-double, 34 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. I mean, that's a great night. That's what we're wanting from LaMelo. Obviously, he's not going to have that game every night, but, we're also hoping to have Brandon Miller back. Brandon Miller, it's impressive to me that we were able to win this game without arguably last season our best player, if not our best player last year. And it was just impressive to see without Brandon Miller, Brandon Miller going down, not playing the second half, and us being down 18, still able to come back. And, the energy on the sideline, Charles Lee looked engaged. I'm super impressed. I've said it early on. I'm still super impressed with Charles Lee and his coaching. Obviously, just a huge win. It's nice to be, especially after the Panthers losing week in and week out. It's nice to finally have a Carolina team, Carolina pro team at that, win a game. And tonight was just awesome.
Yeah, it's night and day compared to, season openers for both the Panthers and the Hornets tonight. I mean, the Panthers, that game one started off bad with the interception by Bryce Young. So, I mean, we needed this. We needed something because the city cannot afford two bad teams this year. I mean, I know it's just game one, so we can't get too ahead of ourselves, but let's hope these guys can keep this up. And again, we don't even have Mark Williams yet,
No.
and we know
Yep.
what he can. We know what he can be when he's healthy. And it sounds like his progress is still going smoothly, but it sounds like they're just easing their way back in. He's already back on the court. I think they're in practice and such, which is a good sign compared to
Mhm.
where we were
Yep.
last year. We need him. Nick Richards. Good role player, but he doesn't have that aggressiveness, and I will always stand by that big man. But he just doesn't have that dog in him like Mark Williams does. Man, those first two quarters were very sloppy. It was pretty bad. And they let the game get away from them. But somehow coming out of halftime, Charles Lee was able to get into those guys' head a little bit, come back. He changed the rotation a little bit. I noticed, a lot of rotations throughout the night, which is, I mean, it's basketball. That's going to happen. But I will say, though, not really feeling how Micic is playing right now.
Yeah.
Um, he costed us a lot of points. I mean, I was so ready for him to get off the court ASAP after a lot of the stuff he started to pull.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. And he also got kind of thrust into the spot just because Brandon Miller going out. He's not typically going to play the amount of minutes he did tonight. I wanted to mention, nights like tonight, last year, when the games get out of hand, when you go by down by 18 as a Hornets fan, you're like, oh, okay, another game, another loss. It was nice to see, even with Brandon Miller out, the team come together and pull off a win like this. Yes, the Rockets are not, they don't have a ton of stars. Obviously, Alfred Sengun played amazing tonight. I think he had 25, he's really their centerpiece on that team. But typically as Hornets fans, when you go down by 18, you're like, oh, it's just another Hornets loss. And somehow tonight we were able to overcome, the 18-point deficit and really come together as a team and, make that big step. Yes, it is, the first game of the season, but it's just nice to see that, hopefully that can continue throughout the year and we can kind of, when we're down by 18 or down by, 10 or whatever, we could have those rallies and those stretches where we score a lot of points and continue to stay in these ball games.
And the fact that they were able to do that away too, they
Yeah.
weren't even at home. That was pretty impressive too. I will say this, I don't think they would have been able to pull this off under Steve Clifford's leadership.
Yeah, I would agree.
It would not have happened. Again, it's just Charles Lee so far, good showing. Hopefully it keeps up. I like what I've seen so far. A lot of the, play calling and just different stuff that he, and his new staff obviously did with the team tonight. Down 18 without Miller. All the role players were able to fill in. Trey Mann, man, if he keeps this up, he would seriously be a six man of the year contender. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
this
would
was
agree.
this was amazing for night one.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, 24 points off the bench is something we need all throughout the year. Obviously he's not, as mentioned with LaMelo. I don't think he's going to score 24 off the bench all every game this year, but I think it could be a consistent thing. More times out of not, he's going to score off the bench, and we need that. We need those guys off the bench to be able to score. Obviously, Grant Williams, I thought played pretty well. He hit that big three late in the game, I think with like 30 seconds, 35, something like that, seconds left in the game, was huge. Obviously had a few fouls that were questionable. Had the foul on Jalen Green for the 3-point play late in the game, but I mean, it was just overall nice to see. I think, Charles Lee bringing that energy, being a lot younger than Steve Clifford, I think plays a big role in his coaching. Obviously has a lot more energy and a lot more juice to him. And, Kemba Walker being on the staff is huge. It's just huge to have a former Bobcat slash Hornet that has had, some success in the city and had some success in his career be on the roster and kind of help these players out. But yeah, I mean, overall, huge win, huge win. It can't be understated. Hopefully we could parlay that into, Friday night against the Hawks. We travel to Atlanta, play against Trey Young, and, obviously the first overall pick in this last year's draft out of France. We play them on Friday night, and, hopefully we could parlay this big win in Houston into Atlanta.
Yeah, and honestly, Trey Young, he had quite the game for himself tonight. If I'm not mistaken, he had 30 points, 12 assists, and 5 rebounds. So it'll definitely be pretty cool to see him and LaMelo go back and forth with hopefully somewhat of a competitive game. Hopefully we can come out with the dub. I feel like Hawks may be a little bit more of a competition for us, just a little bit, but nonetheless should be a good game overall. We definitely got us a entertaining team to watch if they could keep this up.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned, the Hawks present a bigger challenge, in my opinion, as well, with the big star being Trey Young, obviously having a big night tonight on Wednesday night as we record this podcast. But yeah, hopefully we can be able to limit him a little bit. I don't think, Trey Young's going to be Trey Young. He's going to make big shots and down the stretch, and hopefully we can, it's going to be interesting for me to see if Brandon Miller, what his status is for Friday night. It's going to be interesting to see if he's able to play tonight. Obviously, him not playing the second half, me personally, I would probably lean towards him not playing on Friday night. I hope he does. I'll be at the game, so I'd love to see Brandon Miller play. Obviously, it's going to be my first time seeing LaMelo play in person, so I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping he can have a huge game again. And Trey Man, my guy off the bench. I'm hoping he has another big game. It'd be nice to. I'm a big Trey Man guy. Might have to get a jersey, but I hope he has a big game off the bench.
I will definitely say you got a little better than I have it last time I went to see the Hornets in Atlanta. Last time I went, LaMelo Ball was injured. Kelly Oubre was injured. A lot of our main people were injured. The star
Oh,
of that game for us was Terry Rozier, and
yeah.
we ended up winning that game because of him. So you got it a lot better than I did last time. Last time I saw LaMelo was in Charlotte. So enjoy it. Let's hope he can have another game like tonight, even if it's not 34 points, getting something special because the city deserves something since, that little football team down the road from Spectrum Center is not giving it to us right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hopefully that's been the story of the team the past couple of years, just nobody staying healthy and, being without Kelly Oubre and when he played for the team and, being without LaMelo and having Terry Rozier play a lot of minutes and played well for us, I think, not don't want to harp on players that are not on our team anymore for too long, but played great. And obviously, as you mentioned, the team down the road is just not playing well this year. Obviously, dropping to what are we 1-6 now?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
It shows how much we're keeping up with it that we got to ask each other what the what the standing is.
Yeah, it's just another, add a loss to the column every week, and it's just frustrating. Obviously, didn't play well. The Panthers didn't play well at all in Washington, even with Jaden Daniels being hurt. Jaden Daniels obviously went down early in the game with the injury. Hope he's okay. Obviously, one of the great young players in the league. You never hate to see injuries for great young players. Hate to see injuries for anybody in the NFL, but Marcus Mariota looked like he was back at Oregon against the Panthers and tore us up. And it's just frustrating. I mean, I'm running out of words to say about the Panthers because it's the same thing every week at this point. And this season's been chalked up as another, bad Panther season. And, we're the laughing stock of the league looking towards a top 5 pick. And going into this week, it's looking like Bryce Young's going to be the starter, which is interesting to me because Andy Dalton obviously was in a car crash earlier this week. Prayers go up to him and his family. He was involved in a car wreck with his wife and his kids. You hate to see that. Obviously, we're praying for Andy. Had a thumb injury, I believe, a sprained thumb, and will not be playing this week. But wishing for a speedy recovery for him. And obviously, going in this week, we got Bryce Young again. And what are your kind of expectations for Bryce Young this week?
Not expecting a good game, to say the least. Played Denver Broncos. I mean, that's if Dalton was playing, I would definitely say it's one of those either or type games. It could have been like a potentially like a Vegas game again, just because of where Denver is right now. But now that we got Bryce Young back playing, personally, I'm not really expecting. I can't even tell you what numbers I may expect from him, honestly. Kind of like you said last episode, Bryce Young playing is really going to show, at least for the organization, if he's worthy of keeping around long term post this season. I mean, especially for where we are. And again, I said it last time. Canales and Dan Morgan, they inherited a 2-15 team last year.
Yep.
So when you do that, or when you inherit something like that, it's not going to be early success, no matter how much you revamp and make, the moves that you can in that moment. That's the type of team that's you're going to have to rebuild from the ground up. And where we are now, arguably we could be worse than what we were last year. So I'm not going to completely say it's those two fault because of what they inherited, but something's going to have to change. I know Canales, the way the team has been over the past few years, Canales could be in a hot seat. They're very quick to fire coaches for not winning games. I mean, I would rather not go through that again because that means we're going to be in a complete rebuild all over again. Coaching staff, more than likely, moves of players, all that. So it's just a terrible, terrible situation right now. And, losing games like 40-7. I mean, can't keep doing this for the years to come. I mean, it's going to be, in my personal opinion, if we keep firing coaches and staff and with this type of roster we got, it's just going to be nothing but that for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think Canales will last through this season. I think we fired so many coaches in the past couple of years that, it's worth giving a shot in my opinion. And I'm not totally out the door on Canales. I think he's inherited a ton of just a bad roster, man. It's just a bad roster right now. Watching the game against Washington and hearing the commentators talk about how many undrafted free agents we have on defense that are playing, it's just not a good roster. Obviously Dan Morgan being his first year pass off season, it's going to take a couple years. It might take longer than that, for us to find success, but it's just disappointing, as a fan and being passionate about Panther football and growing up there and watching the games and going to the games and, living through the Cam Newton, years and all that. It's just frustrating. And yeah, I mean, it really boils down to that. And this roster is so bad right now with the amount of guys we have playing on both sides of the ball that are either undrafted, not to throw shade at the undrafted guys that have made it this far and made NFL rosters and are playing, but you can't win and you can't sustain success with a bunch of guys that are not, for lack of a better term, not talented enough to play in this league and start in this league, especially when you see teams like, other teams around the league that are having success. Obviously Baltimore, if you look at their defense, they have a great defense. Kyle Hamilton, first round pick, Roquan Smith, first round pick, all these guys that are alphas in the locker room, and you can't have that with, a bunch of undrafted free agents on defense. And it's just frustrating to see, obviously losing again, going in Denver to play the Broncos. I'd hate to say it, but every quarterback we've played this year has played well against us. And Bo Nix coming out party this weekend in Denver. I would not be surprised if he has a good game and plays well on Sunday.
Yeah, honestly, especially with Bryce Young playing, I feel like it's going to be a great game for him. I mean, like I said, it may be somewhat of a different outcome if Dalton was, but I'm not seeing it to be a successful weekend for us just because how all else is going at this point. So it's just another week for the Panthers. I mean, you expect what's to be expected at this point. You can't make it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just frustrating, obviously 1-6. It's just, we didn't, me personally, I didn't expect this going into the year. And obviously, players are not we're kind of seeing the loss of the locker room. Obviously Deontay Johnson's been in the news the past couple days, and we're seeing guys kind of be out on the team, and I would expect us to make some moves at the trade deadline in November. Obviously, I don't know. I would be not surprised to see us move Deontay Johnson and potentially Miles Sanders with Jonathan Brooks coming back and Chuba playing as well as he is. Once again, just shout out to Chuba Hubbard, man, playing well with all the circumstances we have in Carolina and Charlotte for the team. Chuba continues to play well. Obviously, if we had a better team, I feel like his stats would be better, but his stats are still good right now, even with the team we have. And, it's frustrating to see guys go into each week and play as well as Chuba has, and pour his heart and soul into the games and give his all, and, breaking tackles, trying to break tackles. And it's just frustrating to see that, the rest of the team, there's pieces on this team that don't feel the same way and are not playing the same way. And obviously Deontay Johnson being in the news saying he can't play every position on the field and make every play. It's frustrating to hear. You want guys just to want to be a part of this team, and it feels like that, Deontay's kind of falling out of favors in Charlotte, and it's going to be interesting to see what we do, going into the deadline in November with a lot of pieces on this team.
Yeah, I mean, you're losing a player, figuratively, if they're saying stuff like that, honestly, especially
Yeah.
in the locker room. I mean, that's never a good sign. And you hate to even see a player like that having this type of experience. So, well, on to Denver. We'll see how that goes. We'll have that to discuss next week.
Yeah, so as always, we appreciate y'all coming in and tuning in every single week. We appreciate all the support, and we'll continue to pump out these episodes. We'll be covering obviously the Hawks game on Friday night later next week, and we'll cover, some more Hornets news. Obviously, if the Hornets continue to have success, we're gonna shift our focus more to the team that's having success and is fun to talk about. But yeah, as always, you can follow us on our social medias, both X and Instagram at BuzzPoundPod. And you can find our podcast on YouTube and Spotify at BuzzPound Podcast.
And until next time, we are the Buzz Pound. Keep pounding in Buzz City.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Buzz Pound. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you thought of this episode. Until next time, this is the Buzz Pound.
Touchdown!